Alright guys, so today I'm going to show you how to build your computer from these parts here. Here you see the motherboard, the CPU, your CPU fan, your hard drives, your RAM, and your graphics card. Inside the computer you see the power supply and the CD drive, which I took out. First things first, when you're building a computer, you have to put your motherboard together. And the first step with that is you have to install your CPU. This small tiny square is a CPU. If it's from AMD, it'll have pins on the bottom, and you never want to touch these pins or bend them because your CPU will be broken and you have to buy another one. They're $180. You don't want to do that. So when putting it in, you want to line this little gold triangle there up with the small triangle that you will see in the top left corner of the socket. And you don't want to push on it at all because it will break. You just drop it in and push this little thing tab down. Next is your CPU fan. Now you're probably wondering what this gray stuff is here, and that's thermal paste, and what it does is it conducts heat or thermal energy between the surface of the CPU fan and the surface of the CPU. And in this case, when you buy the CPU, this particular fan comes with it, and it'll already have thermal grease applied. So I'm not going to go over how to apply thermal grease today. But you're going to take your CPU heatsink fan and place it over the socket here. You want to make sure to line up these little metal tabs with little strap socket type things here. And this part can get difficult. Remove this out of the way. Let me just flip this little tab into place, and that's not going anywhere. Once that's on, you can lift it up by the CPU fan, and it'll be fine. You just want to make sure you support it. It doesn't go anywhere. The next step is your RAM. That's your memory. You need that so that your computer knows what it's doing. It can't just use hard drives, it needs memory. So you're going to take these, and you want to make sure you line up this little slot here with the socket on the motherboard, and it can only go in one way. So if it's not lined up properly, you need to turn it around. You're just going to take your fingers and push down evenly on both sides until you hear that little pop. Then we do the same thing with the other one. Another thing to remember is you need to refer to your particular motherboard's manual for where exactly to put the RAM, because it's not the same for every motherboard. In this case, it's these two blue sockets, but it varies from motherboard to motherboard. Alright, so once you have that all together, we have to move on to putting it inside the case. So I'm going to explain real fast what you need to do there, and then I'm going to cut so I can do that. So let me just rotate this here so you can see. Now, before you can actually put your motherboard into the case, you need these small black things here, which are called standoffs. And what those do is they keep the back of the motherboard away from this metallic surface which will conduct electricity and short your board out. So you need to make sure you put in the standoffs. As for where to put them, you just need to either know what form factor your board is. This one, in this case, is an ATX board. And if you look at the holes here, you can see where to put your standoffs. So it's going to be 9 of them. And since this is an ATX board, in this case, here in the case, it shows you where they go. So if you look at the A, it's for ATX, and then for each place where there's an A, that's where you're going to want to put a screw. So I'll get some light there so you can see it. There's one back here. And I'll explain these wires later. Alright. Cut that, and I'm gonna... Alright, so, back now. And if you see here, one thing I forgot to do is actually plug in my CPU fan. Don't forget to plug in your CPU fan, because then your computer will melt, and that'll be a problem. So I'm just going to take this here and plug that in. You're going to want to find the slot that says, let me bring this closer so you can see it. It'll actually say CPU fan on there, and that's where you're going to want to plug it in. Alright, so now if you got your standoffs in there, your motherboard will come with what is called an I/O shield. So before I put that in, let me explain the I/O shield. This is the I/O shield. Alright, so after you've put your whole motherboard together, whatever, one quick thing I forgot to mention was the CPU fan. You're going to want to have that plugged in, because if you don't plug it in, when you turn your computer on, your CPU will melt and you'll be out $180. So here you go. First thing to do is just plug that in there, and you can see where it says CPU fan right there at the top. Alright, so once you have that done, next thing you want to do is your motherboard will come with what is called an I/O shield. Now you might recognize this as a thing that fits on the back of the computer, and it keeps all your little knobs and switches and buttons and stuff here all nicely secured. So what you're going to do with this is you're going to take it, and at the back of the case there is a space here, which is where you're going to put your I/O shield in, and it pops in quite easily. You're just going to take it here, make sure you put it in with the outside facing out, and then you're just going to pop that in. Hold on, guys. One moment. Alright, here you can see here, I'm just pushing it in. And I want to make sure I get all the sides all evenly secured. Alright, and it should look like this. Alright, now you've got your motherboard, you've got your I/O shield, you've got your standoffs. Next thing to do is to take your motherboard and gently lift it up and place it right on top of the standoffs into the I/O shield slot. And you'll see, like, it'll line up. Every hole will line up with every standoff if you've done this right. And the back of it should look something like this, and that's before you screwed it in. It's not been screwed in yet. Alright, so now this is the part I really don't like. It's actually screwing in the motherboard. This is why it's good to get a case with a removable drive, a removable motherboard tray, because if you do that, then whenever you want to change anything on the motherboard or take it out, add stuff, whatever, all you have to do is take out the motherboard tray, and it's a lot easier. But I didn't do that because I got a nice flashy, flary high profile case, and it did cost me more, but there's many different ways or different kinds of computers you can buy or build, and that's just happened to be with what I went with. So yeah, so I'm just gonna get all these screws put in here, and I'm gonna screw them back in. So I'll get back when I'm done with that. Okay, when you are screwing in your screws for your motherboard, you don't want them to be too tight or too loose, because if they're too tight, you'll risk damaging the motherboard. And if they're too loose, your motherboard could slip around and slide. You don't want that. So you want to just make sure you screw them in securely with a Phillips head screwdriver, and you just want to be real careful about doing that. So you do want it to be nice and sturdy, tight in there, but you don't want it to be too tight where it cracks the motherboard. I'm just going to put this down and talk to you a little bit while I do that. So I'm just going to find a nice place to put this. There we go, something interesting. Alright. So it really is beneficial to build your own computer, because if you build your own computer, you can put in everything that you do actually need and nothing that you don't need. And it'll save you money in the long run, because if there's ever anything you need to change or add or replace, you can just do it yourself, and it's a lot cheaper. And yeah, if you build your own computer, you can choose the parts yourself. You can choose exactly what you want, what the specs can be, and it really is a lot cheaper to just do it yourself. Because also another thing, when buying a computer that's pre-built at a factory somewhere, companies will often install a bunch of programs that you don't want on your computer, but they want on there to make you buy things, and you don't want those on your computer. So it's better just to do it yourself. It's cheaper, it's more fun, in my opinion. I don't know if people actually like building computers. I do, so that's just me. I don't know about everybody else, but alright, so I just finished screwing in the last screw here, and now we're gonna move on to the hard drives and the CD drive. Alright, so let's stand up the case. Now that that's done, it doesn't need to be on its side anymore. Another thing, when you're working with computer parts, it's good to touch the metal of the case as often as possible, because doing that, it moves the static electricity out of you, so that way you don't short out any of the parts on your computer. It's really important to do that every now and then, just touch the case. Alright, so I'm going to take my CD drive here from ASUS, a reputable company, and I'm just going to take this out because it's in the way. I love these screws because you can turn them with your hands, and even though it does have a knob so you can use a screwdriver, you really won't need it because it's got enough grip on there that you can just turn it yourself. So got to have thumb screws. So I'm just going to put this in. Doesn't matter what bay you put it in, but it will matter depending upon what slot you have free on the front of your drive, which I will show you in a minute once I put it back on the case. Alright, so this is a higher end case, so it comes with a few features. The case itself comes with a few features. Obviously, not every computer has these huge fan spaces in the top. I'm going to be adding one in here at some point, but not a lot of computers have that. Computer cases, because it's, you know, this is a higher end case from a higher end company. This one also comes with a fan controller, which means I can change how fast or how slow the fans are moving depending upon how much effort I need out of my computer at any one time. And it has up to 5 fans that you can attach it to. Also, it has, every case will have start switch. Not every case will have a reset switch, USB, and of course your mic and your headphones. eSATA is something that's used more for hard drives, for external hard drives, so you probably won't be using that too much, but I digress. So these here are toolless locking mechanisms for your anything you put in your hard drive trays or your mounting trays. What these are good for is you don't have to screw screws in there every time you want to do this. You just pull this thing here, lock into place, pull it back, flip it out, and then you just slide this back, line it up with the holes on the, there we go, line it up with the holes in the actual, let's see if you can see that, in the actual CD drive, and then you just pop it closed, lock it into place, and it's not going anywhere. What I did for added stability, because you could see mine was kind of sliding back and forth, I took a thumb screw, which is the one I pulled out before to show you, and I screwed it on the other side as well to keep it, so just some added stability to keep it from moving. There we go. Just screw that on there, nice and sturdy, and now it's really not going anywhere. Alright. Okay. The final piece before I do anything else, well, first off, before I continue, I gotta put these hard drive trays in. These hard drives are really easy. In this case, you've got these mounting sleds, and what you do with these is you pop out these little things here. You just push them out, and then you drop your hard drive into one of them, and it'll have little holes similar to the one on the CD drive. You just drop them in there, and then they're easily mountable. Because it's a higher end case, it has these, but not every case will have this, because obviously it's a higher end case. You're paying more, so you're going to get more. I'm just going to slide these in. They slide in real simply until they lock, and there. The same thing for this one, and there, they lock in. Alright, last but not least, last but I would say most, because a lot of the performance of the computer is going to come from the graphics card. Of course, a lot of it does also come from the CPU and the memory and all that, but a huge chunk of that is this bad boy right here. So I'm going to pick this up just so you can get an idea of how huge this thing is. I'm going to lay it on my arm so you can see. Yeah, that's my forearm, just so you can see how big that is. Maybe it'll also give you an idea of how big this case is. Alright, so real simply, you see these gold contacts here. Never touch the gold contacts on anything. Don't do it. So you're going to take those and you're going to line it up with either of these blue PCIe slots right here. That one or this one. Not these. It's the wrong shape. It won't fit. It's pretty much the same thing with the memory. It's got a little slot there, and it's got a slot right there on the motherboard. So you're just going to take this, show that to you now, and you're just going to line it up with the, with the slots there, and then just slide it in until it clicks. Okay, then you get your thumb screws for here, and you screw those on. Let me just go find those real quick. Let's see what I did with them. when I took them out, I'm not quite sure where I put them. They might be over. Oh, here they are. They're on my desk, my messy desk. Oh, this is part of the computer that I took out because it just was taking up too much space in there. But it's basically just more. You see the sleds. It's just the same thing as what's over there, but there's another set of them that goes right here. So I took it out, so it's more space, and I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. Alright, so you got your thumb screws, the same screws as the ones I put in the other spot, and you're just going to, this can be a little bit difficult sometimes, moving your hand and putting stuff in behind things. That's what these are here for. If you have a really long screwdriver, which I don't have, you can actually just screw them in and take them out easily. But I did not have the foresight to bring one from home, so I never thought I would actually take my computer apart again. But here we are. That's why it's good. It's a good lesson. You should take things even though you might not need them. Because it's better to have and not need than need and not have. That's my bit of wisdom for the day. Alright. So, that's that. Now you're probably saying, alright, so cool, my computer's done. No, it's not. Not even close. Now, if you see here, you see all these little holes here. And down here. Those are all for power and your switches and all that stuff. All this stuff needs to get connected to everything. So, now comes my least favorite part of building a computer, is the wiring. The best bet for this is to get a modular power supply. This is the power supply, 750 watts. The best bet for this is to get a modular one, which means you can choose which wires you have and you don't have to have all these snaky cables. Let me get some light on there so you can see. You won't have all those snaky cables going every which way. But it's also a little more expensive, and I didn't want to pay more for something I didn't think would really make a big, huge difference. I was wrong. From now on, I'm never getting another non-modular power supply again. But I did, so now I pay the price. I have to figure out where to put all these cables, and I will cut for a moment so I can come up with a strategy on how I'm going to do that, and then I'll explain all of the wiring and stuff to you. Alright guys, so let me tell you a little bit about what I've done back here. All I really did was I took these wires and I put them in a way that they would neatly fit in the case, and I will show you what each wire plugs into in a minute. Back here, all I did was I took these took these Molex. These are Molex power connectors. You have Molex and then you have SATA. These are older hard drives, so they're still using Molex, but if you buy a hard drive nowadays, it's most likely going to be a SATA hard drive. So this might not apply to you. But in any case, you take your Molex power, and then there's a little slot here, and then you just plug that in right back here. Okay, give me a minute. Okay, I think that's good. Alright, the other thing is, this also probably won't apply to you. Nowadays we use SATA cables. Let me see if I can find you an example of a SATA cable. Hold on here, guys. SATA cable. I know I have one somewhere. Alright. That's interesting. That seems like I misplaced my SATA cable. Oh, there it is. Are you hiding from me? Alright, so this is a SATA cable. Alright, it's got like an L-shaped plug there. And these are the standard now. You're most likely not going to have one of these. This is really old. My hard drives are old. I need new hard drives. But that's besides the point. If you have a new SATA drive, you're most likely going to use one of these power cables to power it, and then one of these connectors to connect it to your motherboard. But I'm using IDE, so I'm just gonna plug these in. If you are using IDE, you just take it here, that little slot there, it's gonna go in facing upwards. There's only one way it'll fit, so if it's not going in, don't force it. Just firmly push that in. Same thing for the other one. There's complicated stuff behind these jumper pins and the two of these, so I'm not going to explain that. It's not necessary. If you have a SATA drive, you're not going to need to know all that. So anyway, I'm just going to take this, run it out in here, find a space for it, just push it out here. This should fit nicely. And then, now that everything back here is all nicely fit, whatever, the next thing is to plug everything in. This part's a little easier. Just get some space here, bring it closer so you can clearly see what I'm doing. Alright, so most important is your motherboard 24-pin ATX plug. You can tell it's the largest one, and it only goes in one way. Once again, everything in this only goes in one way. And you've got, if you can't tell which way it goes, there's a small black tab here, if you can see that, and it'll line up with this little tab here. And then if you can't find that, or I don't know what, you can just look at the shapes on the pins and then look at the shapes on there, match them up, and then just plug it in. Alright, I'm gonna do that later. For presentation's sake, I'm not gonna push it all the way in because it'll take forever. It's kind of tight. So same thing for these. You're just gonna take them. This is actually what this is CPU power. If you've got a nice high-end CPU like me, you're gonna need to use this. And you just take this here, and your plugs will actually say CPU on them. Gotta get my handy-dandy flashlight. See that? It'll say CPU on it. And you just take those and you plug them in up here in that slot there. Alright. Now, let's get back to the IDE cable I was showing you before, which you're probably not going to need to know about, like I said. Same thing, it's got a little tab on it, and you've got your IDE slots here. These are SATA slots, I'll get to those in a minute. And you just plug it in. Quick thing about SATA, if you have a regular SATA drive, you're going to be plugging it in. What's going on here? Oh. Flashlight was sketching out on me. Alright, so you're just going to, if you have a SATA device, you're going to be plugging your SATA devices in here. Some motherboards have more than this. This is just all SATA 3 gigabit per second. I won't explain what that is because you don't need to know. Yeah, those are your SATA slots. Once you've got power to those, that's your two main motherboard power. And also you're going to need to plug in your CD drive, which has nothing right now. All you need for that is a single SATA plug right here. And you just take it and you follow the L shape And if you see here, it'll be L-shaped. Can't tell if you can see that. Alright, yeah, so you just take it, line it up, and plug it in. Come on now. Alright. It's plugged in. The other thing you will need is that SATA cable I was showing you earlier, which is right here. Now what you want to do for that is you can use whichever end you want, either the curved end or the straight end. I like to use the curved end. You just push that in right here, and that's that. And then you take the other end and you plug it into the motherboard. So those SATA slots I was telling you about before, they'll usually be here. The ideal position for SATA slots, they'll usually be right here. So you're just going to take that, and you're going to pick a free one, doesn't matter which one, they all do the same thing, just slide it on in. Alright, now let's go to these. These are not just going to work, you have to plug those in. This is the sound. Is this the sound? No, this is USB. These are your USB slots. So this wire corresponds to those two slots right there. This is for your power, the power button, the reset button, your LED lights, and this is yeah, these all are for LEDs. Here, these 4 slots there, and then this on this side is a speaker. Your motherboard will usually, if it's not built into the motherboard, it'll come with one that you can plug in, and this speaker is just what's used for the power on self-test, and it'll tell you in a regular post-test it'll just beep one time and then you'll know everything's fine. If it does more than that, then you want to refer to the manual, and then it'll tell you what's wrong with your computer. So, alright, so there's that, and I'll show you how to plug that in a minute. And then you've got this thing, USB, and there's one more. This is, oh, it's so dark. Give me your flashlight. This is for your front panel audio. Alright, it says HD audio. There's another one that says AC 970, I think. And that's for your other kind of audio, but you'd rather use this. This is better, HD audio. So what you're going to do is you're going to find, firstly, oh, one thing I forgot to mention is you don't have to use these white and blue connectors. You can just plug them in straight, but it's better for supporting the wires if you plug it into this thing. You don't have to, but you can. And then it also makes it easier, so every time you plug it in, you unplug it, you don't have to pull out every single wire. So yeah, that's the reasoning for that. Now, when you're doing this, it's real simple. You just read here where it says power, that's the power, resets, reset, HD, LED, plus and minus. If you face it outwards towards you, then you shouldn't have a problem there. On the back side, you've got your speaker. Again, you want to make sure it's facing forward, and then your other 2 LEDs also facing forward. As long as you do that, and they're really easy to plug in or unplug. And then this one is the USB. This one's even simpler. It's literally just one wire that you can't possibly mess up. Oh, I never had this plugged in all the way. Hold on. Oh, there we go. All that time it was a little bit loose. Alright, so yeah, you just take it, the front part of it, and plug it in according to it. It only goes one way, once again, so it shouldn't be hard to do that. And you just look for an open slot here. All these blue ones are USB, and it'll say on the case USB slots, like it will tell you. You can even see down here, well, you can't see it in the video, but, oh, you can, here, you can even see it right there where it says all the LEDs and reset, and I don't know if this one has it. Hold on. Yeah, right here. See USB. It'll say it right there on the case. Not on the case, on the motherboard. Whether it's a USB or whatever it is. And then over here you've got your audio slot. It's the only slot that's like that for your audio. And it'll go into the one on the far left. Alright. So I'm just going to take these real quick. Show you how simple it is. You just throw them right in. Real simple. You don't even need to push that hard. They slide right in. Let's get this around here. It's gonna be messy. Alright, only go in one way. So if it's not going in, there's a problem. Don't push it because you probably got it in the wrong way. I think that's, oh, hold on, audio. Same thing for the audio. One way. It's not hard. Just push it lightly, gently. This is why it's good to have small hands. Alright, I got it. Okay. And if you don't do that right, the HD audio, whatever, and the USB, it's not the end of the world because you may not even use these that often or ever. So if you don't do it right, it's not the end of the world. The front switches and all that, however, you do have to get that right because it'll turn your computer on. It's all that stuff has to be the right way, otherwise it won't work properly. What else did we not go over? I think that's just about everything. If you have a high-end graphics card, which I do, you'll have to plug in another separate power supply. Not every card has this, but my specific one does, so I'm just going to show you how to do that real quick. It's pretty simple. You take these are PCIe wires, and you just plug them in right here. Once again, they only go one way, so you just slide them in. And they will click, make a little clicking noise so you know they're in properly. There. Those are your PCIe slots. Now there's one more thing, the very last thing that I may not have mentioned was I have what is called a fan controller, and most boards, this is really only on high-end cases. So you're probably not going to have one of these with like if you buy a lower end case. But with higher end cases, you'll have like a fan controller. And if you just look down here, you've got the power for your fan controllers. You can see this wire. Well, you probably won't be able to see it from here, but there is a wire. It's this one right here that runs all the way down from your power supply. You're just going to plug that into a regular, whatever type of plug it takes. This particular one takes Molex, so you would plug in a Molex one, and then you'd be done there. And yeah, that's your fan controller. As for the fans, it helps to look at the manual for the case that you buy, or if you buy a separate aftermarket fan controller, it helps to look at the manual to figure out where to put those. And that's about it. Once you're done with that, you can put everything back on your case, close the case up, and you're done. I'm just gonna show you here. Once again, most cases don't do this, but mine came completely apart. I'm just gonna throw this back on here, and I'll show you that in a second. Yeah, so yeah, there's the top, push it down. It's got little notches that go into these little holes, and then they hold on to the case. That's the top. And then for the front, it's this piece right here. Just gonna take that. Here's important. This is important. Like I was saying earlier, you have to line up the drive to the slot that you have open so that it will fit. Most cases don't have this. Like I said before, this is a higher end case, but you do want to make sure you line that up properly. And then you just pop it on. Alright, you've got that. Then you take your side panels, which are these things here. You want to just flip that up, slide that on right there. I have to take out these screws right here so that they will fit the case. Putting the side panel back on, and then you want to make sure it lines up with these here, these little holes here and here. And unlike everything else with this case, most cases will come like that with 2 screws in either part of the case, the top and the bottom of the side panel, and you just screw those back on, and then you take your other side panel. This particular side panel has a couple things about it that when I take it off, I've got to remove these 2 wires here. So you've got this one here, and then you've got, this is again for the fan. This is the fan controller. Normally with fans you would plug them straight onto the motherboard, but I have the controller, so I would just plug it on directly into the controller, and that's where all these wires come from for the fans. And then you just slide that on like so. And then there you have it. Put your side panel back on. And there you have it. Your completed computer.